Om Aganatimanandasya Ganangana Saraka Chaksurun Militam Yanatashmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Yanabhutare Sayamrupa Karamayandarati Swaparantikam Vandeham Siguru Siyataparakamanam Shigurun Vaishnavam Sya Sigurupam Sagadaram Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Stam Sadevam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Larita Shivishakan Vitam Sham Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pasaya Bhutare Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tanam Namaste Saraswati Devi Guruvani Pacharine Nivashesa Sunivari Praskata Desarani Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Another typical challenging morning. You don't even want to hear. You don't even want to hear. Rob and I are talking beforehand. We simply were not able to get onto Facebook from Zoom this morning. So at the last minute, I'm going Facebook Live on my phone, and I've got Rob on the desktop with me on Zoom. And it's got this ratty old screen in the back. So I'm not able to get any sort of neat virtual backgrounds for you today. But anyway, we're here, and thanks to join us, Jean, Sudama. Thanks for joining us. Also, I think Gary scrolled through the screen earlier. Brent, thank you for joining us. We're doing a hybrid, doing live on the phone, and through the desktop, we're doing Zoom with Rob. We weren't able to go through Zoom to Facebook this morning, which is why we're a little late getting online. At any rate, the show does go on. Tadbhag Vishargo Janataga Viplavo Yajun Pratishoga Vidam Namami Antasha Srinvati Gayanti Grinati Saravam. Even though imperfectly composed, even though technologically challenged, even though we've got a horrible looking screen in the back, and even though we're using two different systems, Zoom on the desktop as well as the phone here, still, this message will be appreciated by those men who are thoroughly honest. Good morning, Jay. I'm not sure I'll be able to read your comments at the end. Let's see if we can find a system to do that, because I'm going. The phone is a different look for me than when we're going through Facebook on Zoom. But we're excited about revisiting this 19th verse in the 8th chapter of the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Maya jarava nikara chanam agyada duksharavayam narakshase muda dusham tato nyataro yatam. Tato nato nyatara. Nyatara means like a dancer, like an actor dressed in all kinds of costuming and performing on stage. You don't know who the real identity of the actor is. You just know the role that they're playing on stage. And so similarly, Krishna is himself, although he pervades and supports the entire material creation, it's in an avyakta murtina. It's in a form which is invisible to us. We can never know the real Krishna unless and until we approach him with devotion through the tutelage of a bona fide spiritual master. All we know is how Krishna presents himself as an actor would present himself, all dressed and costumed and speaking lines on a stage. Now, Krishna himself appears in his original form every once in a while. It's quite rare. He has many other incarnations, Purusha avatars, Leela avatars, Guna avatars, but in his Shrayam Rupa, in his original transcendental form, it's not very often that he appears. He did only an eye blink away in terms of time. A mere 5,000 years ago, Krishna appeared his original personal form, and then lo and behold, 500 years later, it's like a double header, a 1-2 punch. He appears again in his devotional form as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now, Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita says, Sarva Dharmam Parityaga Mame Kam Saranam Vajaham Tam Sarvabhya Mokshayasya Vampita. I want you to give up all varieties of duties and concentrate on surrendering unto me. How to do that? Vairagavita Nija Bhaktinam Shri Charitam Purusha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Krupambaru Yashramam Padyate. Lord Chaitanya appeared as Krishna Krishna's devotional incarnation to show us exactly how we can bring about that mood of surrender from within the core of our heart and thus achieve a personal relationship with Krishna. Now, we talked yesterday about how Vyasadeva had compiled all the Vedic literatures. Now, Vyasadeva is Maha Muni Kimba Parir Ishvaraha. He is a literary incarnation of God, and his mission is to deliver devotional service to the living beings. But up to the time that he wrote the Srimad Bhagavatam, he had delivered devotional service, but it had been mixed with Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. The entirety of the Vedic literatures, which were composed by Vyasadeva, included lots of information on devotional service, lots of prayers by devotees, lots of reciprocation between Krishna's devotees, no doubt, is all there. But it's mixed in with other elements like dharma, like religiosity, mundane religiosity, artha, material gain, money, wealth, kama, sense gratification, and moksha. Moksha is also a material desire, the desire to get something in return for your service from the Lord. That in return for my service to the Lord, he'll give me salvation. He'll give me freedom from suffering. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu set the standard. Nadanam, Najanam, Nasundaram, Kapitam, Bhajagan, Mamajan, Manishari, Bhavatad, Bhaktir, Bhakti. He said, who aspires for the summum bonum, the highest perfection that can be achieved in the human form of life, should go beyond Dhanam, Janam, Sundarim, Kavitam, go beyond the desire for followers, for fame, for beautiful women, as well as even the desire for liberation. It is said that the physician who truly cares, Sreyam Nisriya Shivam, Navakti Agakamani, Naret Yorubacham, Banchito Pi Bishaktima. The expert physician who truly cares for his patient, who truly wants to restore that patient back to radiant, vibrant health, doesn't make any compromise with the patient by allowing him to take partially what he should not take at all. So after compiling all the Vedic literatures, as we discussed yesterday, Vyasadeva was despondent, unsatisfied, and he asked his guru to put your finger on the point. What is it that I'm missing here? Please point it up. Put your finger on it. Sometimes when we have various pressure points in the body. So when someone forcibly puts their finger on a pressure point, it's a little painful, but it's good for us. It helps to restore us to health. Acupuncture, acupressure. Arjuna said the same thing to Krishna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Krishna, point out my defect here. Put your finger on the pressure point. It may be a little painful for me to hear what I'm missing, how I have got it wrong, but I'm willing to endure the pain of instruction in order that I clear my path back to home, back to God. And in order to do it, I'm willing to endure the pain of acupressure or acupuncture in order that my body may be restored to health. Krishna loves us too much to misdirect us towards sense gratification, economic development, mundane religiosity, or even liberation. It says, Tulyama labanipi na sharga na pravavaram bhagavat sangi sangacha martanam kim utashishaham. A moment's association with a pure devotee who will do nothing other than take one back to home, back to Godhead, will not divert one percentage of angle away from back to home, back to Godhead, is worth more than all the opulence, all the wealth, all the followers, all the influence that one can get within this material world. Even if one were to become Lord Brahma with all of his opulences, still a moment's association with a pure devotee of the Lord is worth more than becoming Lord Brahma, the creator and Lord of a universe. And it's worth more even than getting salvation. It's worth more than even getting freedom from birth, death, and disease and old age. Because when you're engaged in devotional service, one is automatically on the liberated platform. There's no separate endeavor required for that. And so Narada Muni, when Vyasadeva said, put your finger, it may be a little painful, but tell me what I'm doing wrong. He said, Bhavatanu Toropyo, Yasho Bhagavatam, Inaivanu Natrishita, Manye Tadarshanam Kalam. I think. And of course, when God says, I think, you better pay attention, right? Sometimes Krishna, he says, this is my opinion, or I think this, or it could be this. Well, don't be fooled. He's not speculating. He knows the beginning from the middle, from the end. He created everything. There's not an atom in which he's not fully present. There's nothing he knows. He knows past, present, and future. There's no heart from which he's absent. There's no atom in which he's missing. So when Krishna says, this is my opinion, don't believe him. Don't believe him for a minute. Whatever Krishna's opinion is the absolute truth, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. And so Krishna says, my opinion, manye tradarshanam kilam, is that only devotional service will satisfy the soul and take the living being to where he needs to go. And therefore, you need to write another book which omits Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. You need not to mix in devotional service with all these temporary material goals and destinations. Dharma prodito kaitavo tra nimatsanam vedam vastamatra vidam shivan marum Srimad Bhagavate Mahamunikam Sadya Ridi Avarudite Tra Divihi Shushu Bhishisana. Write that book which is complete in and of itself, which is illuminating, liberating, and uplifting. Write the glorious, spotless story of the absolute truth and his pure devotees. Now, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Na buddhi bedam janayat adgyana karma sanganam. For those people who are attached to fruitive work, they're just not going to go to the level of devotional service. Krishna says, don't disturb their minds. Don't insist that they take up devotional service. In fact, the 9th offense against the chanting of holy is not to preach to the faithless. Let them go on doing their work, but maybe they can take prasadam. Maybe they can donate something to the cause of spreading Krishna consciousness. Maybe they can go and work in the garden for some time. Today, as Bhai Bobby was telling me, there's like 4 volunteer groups coming today on a Tuesday. Would you believe it? To work in the garden, work in the kitchen, youth groups, church groups, to do tours. We are going to be flat out all day long. None of these people are coming here to nourish pure devotional service to the Lord. Even though they're all LDS, which means loving devotional service, their purpose is to get some pious credits, to get some punya, not to achieve devotional service to the Lord, not to divest themselves of material ambitions and goals, but to take those material ambitions and goals to a relatively higher level in the material world. And we're not going to say anything to discourage them. We're going to welcome them with a glad heart, not being hypocritical. We're truly happy they're coming. They're going to do karma yoga. But because Krishna is to be benefited, the gardens that they're going to cultivate, the harvests that they're going to bring in, the vegetables they're going to wash and cut up and that we're going to cook are going to be offered to Krishna. Yagya sistachino shanti mujjate sarvakir te tuanam ye pachanti makaranam. We're going to take that food and we're going to offer it to Krishna. And therefore it's going to be purified. So the karma, the work that they did, they had the motive just to become more pious and more righteous. But because the end result is to satisfy Krishna, they're going to come to the point eventually through that selfless work of becoming purified from those material desires. And they will eventually arrive at that point, perhaps in a future life, where they're working only for the satisfaction of Krishna. Yata turur mula nisayachana tatskanda bhajopar panopariyakshadetanam tataivasaram. They're going to come to the point that instead of watering the roots instead of watering the branches, leaves, buds, and twigs, they're going to come to that fortuitous point of watering the root of the tree. And it's all starting right here by doing some volunteer work in the temple in Spanish Fork, Utah. If we only knew the ramifications of the work that we do. So, not to disturb the minds of non-devotees is a basic principle for preachers. Let them not be pushed, because whenever you push, what happens? There's pushback. For every action, there's an opposite and equal reaction. So if you're pushy, if you're forceful, then people are going to be repelled. They're not going to be attracted to the devotees, nor are they going to be attracted to devotional service. So whatever their motives are for coming, let them come. Don't dissuade them. Don't discourage them. Don't demean them. Don't act condescendingly. Krishna did the work, as Thomas said in an earlier interview with him. Krishna did the heavy lifting. He worked from within their hearts. There's so many options that one has on any given day. So many different recreational activities, so many different academic activities, so many things you can do with your friends, so many different ways you can serve as a volunteer. There's Habitat for Humanity, there's EarthSave. But Krishna did the heavy lifting. He brought them to the temple. Now do nothing to cause them to stumble. Do nothing to cause them to be repelled, to make them second guess their decision for coming in. Na buddhi bedam jane agam. They don't know anything about Krishna. They don't know about devotional service. But still their buddhi, their intelligence is going in the right direction. Their footsteps are leading them to the temple. So nevertheless, for those who are aware, or for those who are primed, we've had one boy coming for the last couple of weeks. His name is Tucker. You just look at his face and you know this boy is ready. Throughout who knows how many lifetimes he's come to the point. Got himself japa beads in a big bag the first time he came to the Sunday feast. Brent knows well what I'm talking about. Brent is mentoring him. I asked Brent during the Sunday feast. Brent had been talking to him. I'd been talking to him. I said, "Where's Tucker?" And Brent said he's up on the upper veranda, walking around, doing parikram, chanting his rounds. Every once in a while, you get that young person who has prepared themselves, who has divested themselves of all other kama, dharma, moksha, and artha in the previous life, and they're just ripe and ready. They're extremely rare. They come about once in a decade, probably, or maybe half a decade. But they are there. Now, for those type of people, we should not dilute or divert with any discussion of karma, dharma, artha, moksha. When you have dry grass, there's only one thing you need to do, and that's to throw that match in that dry grass. You don't need to prepare the dry grass. There's no prelude. There's no foreplay, so to speak. You just, as quickly as you can. You don't bring any sort of moisture near the dry grass. So when there's someone who's sincerely inquisitive about the science of devotional service, you do not bring up dharma, karma, artha, moksha. Those can only be used as hooks, perhaps, to entice people who know nothing of devotional service to do a little something on behalf of the Lord. So Krishna is the root of the tree. He's the stomach of the complete body. And those who are pure devotees of the Lord focus on directing people to pour water on the root of the tree. That is the right process to water the tree. Just as much as feeding the stomach is the right process to bring energy to all parts of the body. Therefore, Narada Muni says that in order to give people the opportunity to make their lives perfect, you have to compile the Srimad Bhagavatam, because what you've done so far has been to deny them that opportunity and present them more or less a mishmash of philosophy and stories by which they could get misdirected. And you've done that in the name of religion, as if that wasn't bad enough or questionable enough as it is. You've done it in the name of religion. You've said that you take up religion in order to get wealth or sense gratification, piety, or liberation. Dharmasya babarakasha naita naita shabare kamala bishmi kamasyandanyobi labudivide jivashatabidi naita yashrihan. Dharma or religion, true service of the Lord should never be engaged upon for personal gain, for wealth, sense gratification, mundane religiosity, or liberation. And because so many scriptures mention that, muddy the waters with this point, people, even religious people, are often indistinguishable in terms of their cares and their concerns and their anxieties from people in general, because they're trying to get the same things that everybody else is trying to get. They're just trying to get them from God. They're trying to get God to give it to them. Other people are working for those things on their own by the sweat of their brow. They're earning their material opulence. Religious people are adding that extra element into the equation. They're asking God to bless their endeavors and to favor them disproportionately. So no wonder that people are puzzled how to fix their minds on the service of the Lord. No wonder people are always disturbed about finding the path of realization. And a lot of this arises out of the compromising spirit, which is typified by Vyasadeva. That compromising spirit is directly condemned by Narada Muni, and he says, when Vyasadeva puts it on the altar, asks the spiritual master to give it to him straight, immediately Narada advises him to directly proclaim that the prime necessity of life is to realize one's eternal relationship with the Lord and thus surrender to him without delay. Savai pumsam paro dharmo, the highest occupational duty of men, yato bhaktir hokshadi, is to try to connect with the Lord who is beyond our senses through devotional service. Try to perfect that devotional service up to the point where it becomes a haitukiya pratiyana, unmotivated and uninterrupted. And at that point, only at that point, will the soul be completely satisfied. So unlike the Mahabharata and unlike the Puranas, this new work of Vyasadeva is going to be Nigama Kalpataru Garidam Palam Shuka Mukaramita Dravisapibata Bhagatamasham Rashamaya and Marudasham. He's going to explain to people in general how they can focus their energies on the prime cause of all causes, the source of everything, that Supreme Lord who has a body of Sat, Chit, Ananda, Vigraha, knowledge, bliss, and eternity. Example is given that the fire exhibits itself as heat, illumination, smoke, sparks, and flame. The fire exhibits itself in many varieties, but at the same time, all of it is fire. It is different, and it is at the same time one. Now, the Mayavadis, or the monist philosophers, try to make everything one by declaring that the diversity is false. They declare that the heat, the light, the smokes, the spark, the flame, they're nothing but fire. We don't have to acknowledge the diversity. All we have to acknowledge is the oneness. They do not accept the different manifestations of the Lord as having any validity. They discount them because they're of the inferior nature, they're made of matter, and they're temporary. But the devotees recognize that because these are the energies of the Lord, they have value. Because the Lord is spiritual, there can be no such thing at the end of the day as material energy, as energy which is separate and apart from the Lord. Because even the material energy has the same source as the spiritual energy, devotees, while recognizing that one is superior and one is inferior, nevertheless work within all the diversity of the material energy in order to serve and glorify the Lord. Anashakta shabisham yataram upatanam nirbanda Krishna sambade yukta vaira guchate. So-called spiritualists, so-called transcendentalists, who are infected by the Mayavadi philosophy. They'll challenge the devotees. Well, if you're so spiritual, why are you driving that car? If you're so spiritual, why are you using the computer to go on Zoom? If you're so spiritual, why are you having big feasts on Sundays? Isn't life about retracting, identifying with the spirit soul within you, and realizing that you're God and becoming one with everything? Well, the answer is no. No. God is great. We're small. So the only way that we achieve satisfaction is not by pretending to be God, the creator and Lord of millions and millions of universes. That makes us ludicrous. But we have to step right into our true constitutional position, which is that we're not God. We'll never achieve satisfaction by trying to become one with God. But what we're going to do is we're going to serve him. Now, if you want to serve somebody, you need some paraphernalia. You need some tools. You need some stuff to do the service. You can't just think service. You have to do service. Crude example. Beautiful girl comes into the room. So many men are attracted. What do they want to do? They want to do something to get her attention. So let's say she drops her handkerchief. So there's a huge scramble. There's elbows, there's black eyes, there's kicks to see which of all the men can pick up the handkerchief and do some service to that young lady, thereby getting her attention. So the handkerchief is nothing. It's like worth 2 cents in the market. But because it was dropped on the floor by the beautiful young lady, the object of these guys' attraction, they latch onto the handkerchief as a way of connecting with that young girl. Without the handkerchief, they're at a loss as to know how they can connect with her. They have to do some service, and she throws out that bone, so to speak. She throws out that handkerchief. You guys fight over it, and whoever's the strongest and the most determined will get the handkerchief and then get my thanks, and then maybe can ask me out on a date or some such thing. So if you're going to do service, you have to acknowledge this material world as the substance. This material world is not the same as the spiritual world. Nobody's saying that. Spiritual world is substance, and this material world is reflection. But let me ask you this. If you see the reflection of a mango, what does that reflection of a mango do? It reminds you of the real mango, isn't it? That's the purpose of the reflection of the mango. It reminds you of the real mango, isn't it? So what is the purpose of this world? The materialists, they see this material world as to be enjoyed. They take this material world as real, and they falsely pursue the phantasmagoria of trying to achieve happiness by enjoying the temporality of this material world. And then there are other schools like the Mayavadis who try to achieve satisfaction by denying the material world. This material world is temporary. It's illusion. It has no more substance as a dream. Well, it's true. This material world is not the substance. The spiritual world is the substance. This material world is a reflection. But what is the purpose of the reflection? To remind you of the reality. What does the reflection do within the mirror? It reminds you of the reality which is being reflected in the mirror. So similarly, we embrace the things of this material world not for themselves, not apart from Krishna, but we embrace them as reminding us of Krishna. Tadiyanam samachanam, tajma paradam. What is that verse? Aradhanam sarvasham, Vishnu aradhanam, tajma paradam, tadiyanam samachanam. Parvati, the wife of Lord Shiva, asks him, what is the highest form? What is the highest aspect of the absolute truth? Who is the highest? Who and what is the highest? Aradhanam sarvasham. Of all types of worship, Arada means worship, sarvasham. Of all types of worship, Lord Shiva answers his wife in Padma Purana. Aradham Sarvesham. Vishnu Aradham. Vishnu is the highest object of worship. Tajma Parataram. Then surprisingly, he goes on. You would expect that would be it. Om Tat Sat. Aradham Sarvesham. Vishnu Aradham. Of all types of worship of Vishnu is the best. But he goes on. Aradham Sarvesham. Tajma Parataram. Tajma. Aradhanam Sarvesham Vishnu Aradham. Tajma Parataram Devi. But there's a higher worship, my dear Devi. Tadiyanam Samacham. Higher than the worship of Vishnu is it's the paraphernalia, which is used to glorify the Lord. The alankartam, the jewelry, the crowns, the clothes, the musical instruments, the raw ingredients that come from the garden for preparing food to the Lord, the flowers with which you make garlands, decorate the Lord, the buildings with which you provide a residence for the Lord, the cleaners, and you clean the residence for the Lord. More worshipable than the Lord himself are the things that are used to honor him. Because without the things, without Tadiyanam, without the paraphernalia, we would be stumped. We would be lost, stuck forever, condemned in the prison house of this material world. Now, the materialists, they want to take what belongs to God and use it for their own sense gratification, which is thievery. And the monists, they want to deny or reject all the things of this material world and put down devotional service to the Lord. They do not acknowledge devotion. They have too much pride within themselves to bow down and worship the Lord, who is the source of all this variety and variegatedness and diversity in this material world. So devotees achieve a certain integrity, a certain wholeness, which the renunciates and the sense gratifiers have no access to. We find this verse in the third canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Ye tu tvadiya charanam barham kosha ganham jaganti karna vivaraha shruti vata nitam bhaktya grihita chara pararam nadesham nabashi natam rijam shaparam. Oh my Lord, this is, I believe, Uddhava speaking. Persons who smell the aroma of your lotus feet, carried by the air of Vedic sound, through the karna vivaraha, through the channels of the holes of the ears, bhakta grihita charanaparam, they accept the highest principle of your devotional service. Avashi natam rirambara chukram. For them you are never separated from the lotus of their hearts. What is the characteristic of devotees? He's smelling with his ears, isn't it? He's smelling with his ears. Persons who smell the aroma of your lotus feet, carried by the air of Vedic sound through the holes of your ears. He's smelling with it. How do you smell with your ears? Because you no longer differentiate. You have achieved in using the diversity and directing it towards the source of everything that be. Your senses cease to be differentiated. In the material world, we smell with our nose, we see with our eyes, we hear with our ears, we taste with our tongue, and we feel with our and those compartmentalized sense experiences fracture our consciousness. Like dropping a pane of glass on a hard floor. It shatters. You're picking up pieces, you're finding pieces of glass months later underneath legs of chairs and tables and cabinets and things like that. You can almost never get it back. So in the material world, people who want to enjoy the combination of the senses with the sense objects are splayed out all over the place. They're going in 5 different directions at once, 6 different directions if you want to count the mind as a 6th sense. But when you engage in this service of the Lord, you use your senses, use your tongue to taste, your nose to... What happens eventually is that the senses become purified, your spiritual body and spiritual senses get reborn from within yourself, and then you start smelling with your ears. You start tasting with your nose. You start hearing with your tongue. And as incredible and as unlikely as that seems, the senses themselves are no longer differentiated when you're engaged in the integral process of devotional service. Why? Because Krishna is Sarvapadi Vanirmaktam Tatvipena Nirvanam Rishikesha Rishikena Bhaktir Uttama. Krishna is the master of the senses. He's the Lord of the senses. If you want to be dominated and tyrannized by the individual demands of the senses, then you're going to lose yourself. You're going to lose your whole. You're going to disconnect from your core. But if you surrender, if you bring all of what you have and tender it at the lotus feet of the Lord, then the Lord is going to take command. He's going to take back charge of your senses, and then those senses are going to know no longer any conditions. And therefore it is said here, symptoms of the pure devotees, charanambusham koshaganham jiganti karnavi viraha shuti vatachakam. They actually smell the aroma of the lotus feet of the Lord through the holes of their ears. Astounding statement. You think the author got it wrong. You think he made a mistake. You think there needs to be some proofreading. But on the other hand, it's explained that those who are averse to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they speculate with their imperfect senses. Their senses are not contained. Their senses are not mustered for a single purpose of transcending matter, birth, death, disease, and old age. The senses are relative and they're differentiated. However, as soon as one begins to hear, and it all starts with the ears, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam. As soon as one starts to begin to hear from the Srimad Bhagavatam, the spotless Purana, which has no other subject matter than glorifying the Lord as a devotee, as soon as one begins to embark upon that journey of oral reception, the senses start to come back home. They start to come back home. They start to again submit to the control of Rishikesha, Rishikena, Sevanam. They start to bow down. Instead of going their own way, the senses come together with folded hands, pranams, and they bow down before the Supreme Personality of Lord Krishna. And they become integrated. They become whole. Pravishtam karna randrenam. As soon as you enter, allow to enter through the karna randrenam, the holes of the ear, the glories of the Lord chanted by the mouths of pure devotees. And when those sound vibrations enter into the heart of the devotee, then the Lord who sits within the lotus of the heart cleanses the devotee from inside, from the dust of material association, gets rid of lust, envy, hankering. And that sound vibration entering through the ears and trickling down to the heart acts analogously like the autumnal rains upon pools of muddy water. It's explained in the Krishna book that during the heat of the summer, when there's a drought, there's no rains, the reservoirs of water become all murky and muddy. They're opaque. They're not transparent. You cannot see the rocks. You cannot see the fish. They're just brown, muddy pools of water. But as soon as the first autumnal rains, as soon as the first drops of rain hit the surface of those reservoirs of water, the effect is that the muddiness clears up, the sediment settles in the bottom, and then you can see. Just like you can see through a pair of glasses, you can see through the water. So beginning by the process of hearing, pravishtam kanarendhanam, opening one's ears to the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that process in itself is so powerfully effective that it purifies all unwanted things and cleanses the heart of the dust of material association, integrates all the senses, and one can practically experience the presence of the Lord within one's heart. Raja Vidya, Raja Gyam, Pavitam Paramam, Udamam Shokaram, Pratchaksham. Raja Vidya, Raja Gyam, Pavitam Paramam, Pratchaksavaram, Susikam Karam. One can directly experience through the ears the presence of the personality of Godhead. And this path By this path, one has direct experience, shakshat, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and one experiences that association of the Lord as a thrill at every moment. And through hearing the lotus of one's relationship with the Lord, whether it be Dashyam, Sakyam, Vatsal, Madhurya, or Santa, whatever it is, amongst the 5 categories of relationship one has with the Lord, those become gradually manifest in due course of time. Enough for today. I think we'll stop there. I'm not sure if I can read the comments because, as I mentioned earlier on, I'm going on Facebook on my phone and I'm on Zoom with Rob here. Let me see if there's a way that I can see the comments. Swipe left to reveal comments and reactions. Swipe left to reveal comments and reactions. Well, I've got Karen from Phoenix as viewers. I've got Manasaganga, Jay, Karen's husband, Bye Bobby, Jean are the viewers at present. And on Zoom, we have Rob. Were you able to hear everything clearly? And what are your pithy comments, Rob, today?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Haribo.
Class, thank you. So I got busy today, so I got a lot. We'll run through them.
Did you see all the ones I posted yesterday?
No, because I don't do Facebook.
Yeah, Rob's not on Facebook much.
At all, really. So here's what I got. Leaving God out of your life leaves you distressed and full of strife.
Nice.
When you work, take the fruit, offer it up, and water the root.
That's very good. When you work for the fruit, what is it? When you work for the fruit, offer it up and water the root.
When you work, take the fruit, offer it up, and water the root.
When you work, take the fruit, offer it up, and water the root. Nice.
Strike the flame in the grass, spread the fire of Krishna in mass.
I wish more people were dry grass. Unfortunately, they're few and far between, but it's amazing when you see someone who walks in the door ready for Krishna consciousness. What else?
Don't just think it, you got to do it.
Okay.
There is no satisfaction in the reflection.
But the reflection reminds you of the reality, which is its purpose.
Yeah. Use Maya as a reminder, not as a blinder.
That's a good one. That's nice. Nice.
Smell through your ears and remove your fears.
That would be cryptic. People want to find out more about that one.
Right? Maybe that'll bring some people in.
Yeah.
Curiosity. And another way kind of to say that is, to break Maya's spell, your ears must learn to smell.
Yeah, I think everybody would have had to heard the whole class to understand those last two, but anyway.
Maybe it'll get them to listen to it all.
Yeah, maybe it'll tweak their curiosity.
And the last one is, devote your work to clear the murk.
What's that again?
Devote your work to clear the murk.
Devote your work to clear the murk. Okay. That's one of those rhymes that's a little, it's not a direct slam dunk rhyme, but they do have some similar sounds in it, work and murk. It's good.
Yeah, some of them take a little poetic imagination.
Will you send those to me forthwith?
Yes, probably.
Okay, I'll include them. I'll go about the business of posting on our other Facebook pages and throwing it up on YouTube. So this has been Transcendental Tuesday. Not without its technical challenges, but all's well that ends well. Even though imperfectly composed, such thoughts and messages are accepted by men who are thoroughly honest. So thank you all for your sincere yearning to find out more, to be purified, and to move closer to the light of Godhead. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Rama, Hare Hare.